Hello, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year 2023 to all the viewers and readers at Penmancy. Welcoming this new year with a big happy start, aspirations, and lots of hope, humor as well. January's harness is all about humor, and who better than Lalita and Natasha, the humor queens as we call them, to present their version of humor to the audience. Lalita's story, Shakespeare in Love, and Natasha's story, No Book Left Behind, have already given us an insight into humor in writing. Let's hear more from these talented ladies as we get on a chat with them. Good evening and welcome, Lalita and Natasha, to the show.
Hi Lakshmi.
Hello.
Hi Lakshmi, hi
Okay,
Lalitha.
Hi
great.
Natasha.
So I'm
Hi.
sure everyone here is excited to hear more on this month's harness. So, Lalita, we would first like to hear from you on your story, Shakespeare in Love. Who or what, other than Shakespeare, was your inspiration behind this story?
So the prompt for that month's harness was will. So will can mean different things to different people. For some people it can mean inheritance, for some people it can be willpower, or it could be somebody famous named Will. So I thought I would, mold the story in that direction because whenever I see the prompt for a harness, I generally say look at the different, possibilities. So what would possibility would generate, a good story to write or a story that I want to write, right? And when it came to famous personalities with Will, there's like Prince William, and there's William Shakespeare. So when I thought William Shakespeare, that something was like okay, that I can attempt a story. I can attempt a story. I can create different elements of interest. I can even make it like a romantic story or a love story or insert elements of humor in it. So that sounded very promising to me, and I started exploring different possibilities. Could Shakespeare be the human Shakespeare? Could it be like a historic fiction? Or could it be somebody called William Shakespeare who has no connection to Shakespeare? And ultimately, after brainstorming, I decided he'd be a goat. So that's pretty much how I zeroed in on it. But it's always like you consider different alternatives, and then one alternative will speak to you the most, and that will be your story.
And that's only possible with you being you, not anyone else. I don't think I can ever think on those lines, and I'm sure many audience here would also feel the same because you have a very different approach towards looking at things, and that's brilliant. I mean, connecting Will, which could mean anything, to William Shakespeare, and then coming on with a story of a goat and William Shakespeare, named Will Shakespeare, who speaks the Shakespearean language. It's brilliant. I mean,
Thank
kudos to
you.
your imagination. So, Natasha, with your book, your story, No Book Left Behind, what made you choose Silverfish as a protagonist for the story? I mean, it's like,
No, I actually don't have an answer to that. I'll possibly the closest that I can come to an answer is I always look for something or a narrator which is who doesn't conform to standards and who knows books as intimately as a silverfish, literally. And I think I mean also because it sort of played into in kind of a mystery because not many people could detect who Sunehri was initially, so it took some time to actually figure it out. So it was just a combination. I have no I don't have any deep answers like my friend Lalita. I'm just weird.
Silverfish,
So
Silverfish पे लिखा है किताब का नाम. That's how I see it.
absolutely.
Silverfish,
Good
Silverfish.
one.
All right. Okay. So there are some comments coming in from the audience. I was
I'm
first
sure.
shocked. I saw that Bill was a goat. Yes. We were all shocked, obviously. And then I simply loved that story. The goat was too cute. Yeah. I
Tokyo,
did find
absolutely
it.
Tokyo.
Yes, it was. My story met the sellers was hugely inspired by your Will story. Okay.
I remember Meet the
That
Sellers. It was like Khushbu.
no, I think
Okay.
Khushbu's on.
Agree, Lakshmi. Lalita can think that way. Yes.
Okay.
That's very good. All right. So that's where the hymn begins, our own very own Suneri. There are too many viewers here. And so my next, the question that pops to my mind is, what comes to your mind when I say it's a humorous story, a story that will generally appeal to the general mass? Humor is a very subjective uh, topic. And so, what, according to you, would make you laugh in a story, or anyone laugh in a story? Should it have more jokes or funny characters, or, you know, how do you put that into a plot or incorporate humor in a plot? Lalita, we can,
Okay. Um, to me, okay, the prominence is for the plot or the story. Humor is something that elevates the story. Okay. And if I want to find a story humorous, I need to have elements of laugh aloud, maybe laugh aloud, or elements that make me chuckle and smile and reflect. It could be a slice of life situation, it could be a satire, it could be a spoof, or it could be something that makes me sit back and think, okay, this is contemporary society, but when I show the mirror, it's kind of, it makes me laugh, which means it's like absurd or ridiculous. And that's also a type of humor. Then there is a kind of humor, the PG Woodhouse kind of humor, that just makes you laugh at the absurdity of human nature and actions and consequences, right? Or it could be the dark gallows sense of humor. And within Penmancy, we have this huge repository of stories. We have very talented writers who come up with a lot of elements of humor. Sometimes it's a slapstick kind with lots of jokes. You have the master of the puns in this call, Natasha. She is amazing with puns. She is a very punny person, a funny and a punny person.
I
So
accept that.
yeah,
Sorry.
and she has written a lot of spoofs and satires. And we have and I mentioned the gallows sense of humor, right? So in the gallows sense of humor, you could have like a death kind of situation, but it's still kind of funny. Like maybe like I read an excellent novella recently by Dr. Aparna. It's called Not So Grave, and it had
Right.
elements of, okay, a death scenario, but it was still very funny because the dead person is just sitting back and introspecting, right? Or it could be fantasy elements. So it can be in any genre. Humor is not the defining genre. It's any story that has a solid plot but is elevated by elements that make you smile, but that make you chuckle, that make you introspect, or make you laugh aloud, and just make you feel good in general. It could be a slice of life or a family drama, but it just makes you feel good and smile within. Yeah.
Natasha, what's your take on humor, and how do you incorporate it, and how do you look at humor in a story?
Um, See, I come from a very typical Punjabi family, and for us, humor is it's ingrained in everything that we do. So I mean, the jokes come hard, the jokes come fast, and they just don't seem to stop. So when you're writing a story, as Lalitha has very efficiently put it in words, that humor is really, I mean, I don't even really classify humor as a genre. Humor, at least in my work, humor is more or less a part of almost all my all the body of work that I have, with the exception of the Moraji Desai story. I think that was one place where I actually didn't write humor. But with the exception of that, I don't really think to add humor. Humor finds its way. Its way. It's like water. It somehow finds its way through the gaps, and that's how, for me, humor is. I mean, I don't think I'm answering your question very uh, efficiently, rather, I would say, like Lalita has. But
No, no.
I don't really set out to add humor. For me, humor usually has to be eradicated from my stories. So
And if
that's
I
how.
may add, like one of Natasha's most favorite stories that I have is Much Ado About a Var, and which is like a spoof. It's a mythological story which is not typically funny because it ends with the heroine dying and the hero becoming very disgruntled and very upset. But she's put it the way she's pieced it together. It's like a very contemporary modern thing. So for this harness, for example, you don't really have to go all and all out on a humor story. You can take any story from mythology if that's the genre you're comfortable with, and add elements. You can make like characters very modern, or you can use modern references, right? So, for example, you have a kale protein shake drinking Narad who goes Narayan Narayan and sips his protein shake, for example. But do it respectfully because we live in very sensitive times. So do it very
Absolutely,
respectfully.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I remember when I wrote about Shivji's man bun, and the ash on his body, I was a little petrified because, but Having said that, I think I sort of didn't go across. I mean, I didn't cross the line.
Om Namah
So yes,
Shivaya.
I think this view kind of gives us an idea on how to incorporate humor into your regular stories in a genre that you are comfortable with, and not look at humor as a genre particularly.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, so that is what I think even the harness this month is looking for. It's calling for
Right,
stories with
But
includes humor, but not humor as a genre in specific.
right.
because
So
humor comes naturally for some of us, and for some of us it's a little more difficult. It's more of like a forced attempt. So don't push yourself too hard and force jokes for the sake of it, because it kind of destroys the plot. Focus on your plot foremost. The plot cannot be wafer thin and elevated by jokes. They just embellish it further. Come up with a really good story, a really good plot line, and you'll see how you can incorporate in dialogue, in situation, or just with small puns or exclamations or metaphors. Yeah, that can really enhance the beauty of the story.
that's a
Absolutely. A
brilliant
role of
insight.
the eye, yeah, a role of the eye can work wonders. In as a literary tool. Trust me, I see it every single day from my daughter.
All right. Okay, so we have some more comments coming in. Kindly share, how do you go about writing your story? Do you take a scientific approach, choose your characters? So I think yes, Lalita has already explained that to us. Like you first choose your main, maybe strength. If your strength is mythology, or whatever your area of expertise is, you write the plot first and then try to incorporate elements of humor within the story, and not the other way around, just deliberately inserting humor for the sake of it. So I think that is how we go about writing. This gives us a good idea. Let's see what others have to say. I usually start writing with nothing in mind, and the story shapes itself. So is humor for me. How would you answer this?
I think the person who
Is
wrote this is
humor for me.
exceptionally creative, because I
I
cannot do
know.
that. I cannot write a story without having a beginning, a middle, and an end. I need to have structure. I'm like crazy about structure. It has to be in the head. I need to know exactly how it ends before I start typing even a word. Because if I let the story shape itself, it'll meander in 10 different directions, and even I won't be able to tie the ends. So I need that structure in place. If it's something that's shape along, that if that works for you, then go ahead, insert humor as and when you feel the situation demands, but just be careful that you have a framework and a limited canvas of words.
Correct.
Natasha, sorry, I was
Natasha.
interrupting you. Yeah.
I don't really. I do plot my stories very loosely, but I do let the characters decide. Some of the places that they go. So is humor for you? It depends on what you're writing. For example, if you're writing, a domestic violence, then humor would be hard to find in situation like this. But if you're writing something like you know the PAN card, Aadhaar thing, I think I had written some time back. And that is humorous because that's a situation that we most of us find ourselves in, and so you can inject humor in such situations. So you have to be careful about where your story and what your story is about. So this I don't know how to answer this question because it's fairly open ended in terms of what are you writing about. So it depends on that to a large extent.
Yes. So you choose your plot carefully, your storyline carefully, a genre which allows you to induct humor into the plot, so that it becomes
Right.
easier for everyone to relate to, and not choose
Of course,
some.
Gallo humors, even, Darlings was, based on domestic abuse and it did have a lot of gallows humor. So it's not that it's not possible, but it has to be very sensitively done, so that you don't offend, either the victims or, people who have undergone the violence.
All right. So another question that comes up is: does a person's character decide if they can write humor? I mean, can a serious-minded person write a funny story?
How about the reverse?
You've done that, so you cannot question that to yourself, Natasha.
Anybody can
Does it
write any story as long as you're passionate
anything?
about it.
Yeah.
You can do
Oh,
anything and
that's
be anything
because
you
you
want, like
girls
Disney
are
style.
experts. Should I say that? Anybody can write anything.
But it depends on what you're
Any?
passionate about, right? Like if somebody asked me to write a story in horror, that would be really scary for me, and that's a pun. I can't do horror, for example, and it's not really something that I want to experiment in. But if you think that you want to give it a try, then I think Harness is the best platform. What other platform than this to get critique and to get feedback to see if this is for you or not? So maybe you consider this as a trial and take the plunge. Then you will know if you want to write it. Being able to write is one thing, and wanting to specialize in it and having a passion for it, thinking of stories in that line is a different thing altogether. So give it a try, and a serious person can totally write humor. Will Shakespeare was, I don't think Will Shakespeare was extremely jovial, and he has written Comedy of Errors, he has written Twelfth Night. He's incorporated elements of comedy.
The litmus test for humor is if you can laugh at yourself, or maybe not at that point in time, but over time, if you can laugh at some of the actions that you've or
Absolutely.
experience that you've had, that's it. Then you don't have to be a haha person all the time, but if you can see humor in situations, you can write humor.
The
As simple as
self-deprecating brand of humor.
that.
All
No,
So
they
that's
say
my
right.
humor
favorite
is
one.
the highest form of intelligence, and if you can laugh at yourself, and as you rightly said, then that's it.
My
So
humor
you
is
two
fun.
as handlers, especially you, Natasha ma'am, how do we bring this in our story? Seems so tough.
Firstly,
I
I
am more
object
of a
to
Monica, okay? I object. I'm more of a Monica, not a Chandler.
All right.
absolutely,
And
Arpana. It is. I'll tell you Punjabi, and it's maybe not Punjabis per se. It is the region. I mean, Delhi is always known for its. Delhi Punjab is always known for its humor. Not that I'm saying other states are not humorous. Before I get hammered on that, it's just that these states are tilted more towards it.
probably yes. Okay. A bit Narad Muni, the respected Narad Muni says, Monica.
Absolutely, he has to. He joined Satin for some Zumba classes, right? I don't know how it
Yeah, yeah.
was. Zumba.
Okay. So Sarabjot here asks, is there a line differentiating humor and satire?
I've always seen
It
satire as a
is, yeah,
subset of humor, a more
subset.
serious subset of humor that reflects on the state of contemporary affairs or society, right? Whether it's like it could be like a situation. For example, I wrote a story on a COVID-based. It was a COVID-based humorous story of what happens when people go into isolation, for example. Or I can think of other examples too, of other satires too. I think Natasha, you have written satires as well. Your book, no book should be like this book. The story that we're discussing here is a satire itself. It's a much more serious satire, which it's a much more serious subset of humor, which makes people think. Yeah, and it comes with a message, not
True.
necessarily a laugh aloud, chuckle loud type.
Agreed. This question then pops to my mind is that what pointers would you suggest keeping in mind when you weave a story incorporating humor?
Be non-offensive. In my own story, I'll give an example. And there was this one scene where the goons enter the library, and they, on Hindi, they're asking librarian some question. I don't remember her. So some part that I taken out was, um, they come up to her and they ask her, "Do you keep Chetan Bhagat's books?" I think everybody here knows about my opinion about him. So do you keep Chetan Bhagat's books? And the librarian says, yes, we do. And the goon then asks her, do you keep the do you keep the Chetan Bhagat's Hindi books? So she says he doesn't write in Hindi. He writes only in English. And I had really wanted to put this part in because you know it, in my mind it was such a fantastic sort of insult to him that he some rationale I must have had at that time. I don't remember that right now. And Dr. Aparna was very insistent that I remove this part because she says, that it may be funny to you because you don't like Chetan Bhagat, but there may be people who do like him for whatever reasons that they have. So it's a tough job sometimes, to write humor without offending because a lot of the cancel culture takes offense at a lot of very ridiculous things that crop up. So for me, the first thing is think your jokes through. you can be funny without being offensive. You can be funny without being racist. You can be funny without hurting someone's sentiments. I mean, preferably no jokes on physical looks or body weights and stuff like that. So that's my own. Otherwise, it's all free for all.
So, Lalita, can we have your opinion on this? How?
So, so while writing humor, also remember your target audience, right? For example, if you're writing a humorous story for a young adult audience, think of the jokes that they will resonate with the most. Maybe it's devices, maybe it's technology, uh, maybe it's like bling and all their slang words. They're not going to appreciate satire or any other sub brand of humor. So always know your target audience. You can also look up examples, read examples. One outstanding example I can think of that I read recently is Khushbu Shah's The Fairly Ordinary Princess. It had amazing examples of humor incorporated for a young adult audience, and it was such a delight to read, right? Um, Similarly, don't make your humor overcomplicated. Like we tend to get a little nerdy. We tend to put, jokes that depend on principles of physics and chemistry, and we think we're very intelligent, but not everybody will resonate with them, right?
I
So
know. I know.
oversimplify.
Don't I know?
Okay. Okay. So oversimplify if you have to, because at the end of the day, you are designing it or you're writing it for a particular target audience in mind, right? Then yeah, and that should be it. Know your audience, don't be offensive, and use different tools which we will probably talk about later, like sentence structuring. How can you enhance the humor? Probably use shorter sentences like staccato to get that full humor effect across.
All
And even
right. Let's.
experiment with different different aspects of humor. You can incorporate slapstick. You can incorporate sarcasm. You can incorporate there are different literary tools of humor you can use. There are quite a few of them. So maybe you can experiment to see which one works more for you, which one feels more natural to you.
Right.
For example, you can use a twist in a sentences, right? So you could have a couple of crisp sentences saying that he's so amazing. He does this. If only he got out of bed, right? So you have the twist. You write like 4 or 5 sentences, and then you write the killer sentence, which kind of reverses the meaning. Or you could
Right.
Yeah.
deploy a staccato technique where you use short sentences like amazing, ridiculous, or all in a dream. Yeah, so something that gives you a shock value. You could even italicize for the humor impact, for example.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's quite an insight. Some pointers here we have for the audience. I'm sure there's a lot of take back from this, a lot of inputs that the viewers will find useful to incorporate them in their stories. Let's see some more comments coming up. Thanks, Lalita, for the clarity. The only humors I know is the arm bone. Oh, yes.
That's why it's
I
called the funny
disagree.
bone. Just a trivia,
Yeah.
it's called the funny bone. Yeah, I had saved it for Penkoi, but now I've blurted it out here. But yeah, it's called tickle
Yeah.
the funny bone is because the humorous is the bone. Yeah.
Maybe the fit nerd can also be singing a guitar instead of a veena. Yeah,
Or a zitar, which is what Niladri Kumar has come up with, the electrical
yeah, the electrical
guitar.
guitar.
Yeah,
Yes,
I can't remember
guitar.
the word. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So yes, let's see if there are any more comments. If someone has been writing passes, is it possible to switch on the humor switch off?
Why not? You could write a tragic comedy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or you could add a ha ha code. Why not try? I mean, generally, the most difficult one to try it out is slapstick, and it's Jeeves and Wooster who, I'm not Jeeves and Wooster. I mean, it's those series who I mean, he's sort of mastered the art of slapstick comedy or even absurdist comedy. So try something if you're so interested in, if you're interested in write, or your choice is generally sadder stories. Switch to something which is more obvious, and then maybe you can find your balance in how much
If
should
you've
you
seen the
how
movie,
much.
if you've seen the movie Paglite, right, it combines pathos and humor. Then yeah,
Right.
so there are a couple of movies which combine elements of tragedy and comedy. So
Right, Ram Kumar ki Tervi.
yeah, Ram Prasad ki Teravi
Ram Prasad, right, 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 right.
movie buff.
movie. Penmancy.
Yes, absolutely. That's
All
the only movie
right.
that
So here's a question that says comic timing is important when you write humor. How do you get that right? Yeah, this is something so important for all of us to know.
That's a difficult
I,
question. Natasha, you want to
I
go ahead?
know. How do you get the? See, I usually write a lot of sarcasm in my humor. Primarily, I write in sarcasm. So for me, it is easier because oh, it's back. In one of my in the novella that I've written, there's this lady who goes to Amarnath in Bombay, and she finds that the entire house is full of tiles. Okay, so they have tiles outside the house, they have tiles inside the house, they have tiles, practically everywhere but the roof. So the first thing that goes in her, in my protagonist's mind is how easy would Diwali cleaning be, because you just have to swipe out the tiles. You don't have to do anything else. So for me, it is very situational. So for me, the I don't know, the comic timing is very situational, because sometimes there are people or situations that trigger. It sort of bubbles up. So I mean, that's the best answer that I can give you, Sonal.
I think it comes with a bit of practice as well. If you don't write comedy just to drag the plot, or, I mean, it works best with dialogues. And while you have an exchange, it's good to put an element of comedy, and you also have to see at what point, right? It could be like a dangerous situation where people are like running for their lives, and um, maybe one person is saying, "Oh, I forgot my purse. I should go and get it back," or something like that. So that timing, the opportune moment where you can slip in, that's what you need to look at, and it shouldn't be something like just an add-on or a filler. But it comes with a bit of practice, because initially, what I mean, we may think is really funny, but it may just be repetitive, or it may just drag you down overall.
There's a story I had read about from my friend Sangeeta Vallat, and it was a story about this woman marrying a girl, a South Indian girl marrying a Punjabi boy, and in Punjabis they do the chunri chadhani ka, there's a ceremony that you do, and I think she forgets her chunni at home, and the mother is frantically going, and the chunni was supposed to match the boy's attire or something like that. And she's frantically going and she's trying to get the chunni, and in the end she somehow manages to reach him just before the marriage is supposed to start, and then she realizes that the groom has changed his clothes because he dropped something on it, so he decided to change the color scheme altogether. So it is not really humor. I mean, the story is not humorous, but the end, when you bring it back to the end and you connect it, that is where the timing came in. So she is holding dupatta, and the guy is not even wearing the same, not in the same color code. So for me, that is very interesting because it's not classically humorous. It's not a ha-ha kind of a story, but it draws the line where the timing is very important. So when he walks in and holding a thing like, "I have got it" types, and it's not even needed. So I think that's the timing.
And if you're not sure about the time, you can actually follow a structure. For example, I write a lot of articles on parenting humor. So initially, it starts with like a dialogue or a conversation that I'm having with my child, and then from there, I move on to learnings, or what can I understand from the situation? How can I become a better mother? So you can try that initially. If that works for you, there are no hard and fast rules. So you can start with, okay, first joke, then you go ahead with your plot, whatever works for you.
So, when you write a story, is it essential that you begin writing a story with a humor element, or you can incorporate it anywhere in the middle, or how does it work? Like the flow, does it begin with humor, or you incorporate the humor as and when needed, or where exactly? I mean, which points do you add humor elements to?
I think it depends. Natasha, want to go first? As I
Okay. Uh, it doesn't have to start with humor. There is no, I mean, there's no hard and fast rule. You can start with humor. Humor can crop in any time, at any place, at the most inappropriate of places, at the most, unnecessary places also, because it depends on what you're using your humor as. I mean, if you're using it as a tension diffuser, you're using it as a tension creator, you're using it as just as a gag. So it depends on where and what you're trying to use humor as. Or if you're writing, I mean, if you're writing a story about you know um, a ghost who's say navigating a different country and different languages. So for him, everything is humorous because he doesn't know anything. So it depends on what your what you are trying to get at, and what you want to use your humor for. So I mean
True.
that's what I would say. I'm sure Lalita has something much better to say.
I think it depends on the USP of your story. What is the most attractive thing about your story that you want the reader to enjoy? If it's going to be an all-out humor story, and obviously there is a story, but you want to set the tone right initially. Like you want to, because readers have limited attention spans. Your opening paragraph is very important to capture their attention. And if you want to advertise your story as an out-and-out comic, right? You might want to set the tone initially and start with something really absurd, something so ridiculous that is clickbait for them, for example. But there is no hard and fast rule. Humor can be sprinkled throughout. But you don't want to build a story about pathos in the last paragraph. You just insert one or two bits of humor. That's just a mishmash. So keep it steady throughout. And if you want to introduce it early on, then that can be your USP. That can captivate the reader and say that, okay, particularly if it's someone who loves reading humor, he'll be like, yes, I've got to read this. Doesn't matter what the genre is. It could be a thriller, it could be a horror, but there is comedy in it, and therefore I will read the story.
True.
That's why romance comedies are my favorite. Romance is so boring.
Yeah,
It has to be
rom-coms
fun.
are the best.
The best.
All right. So Alpna says she did humor and horror, both not in her forte in a quintet. That was out of her comfort zone, and Penmancy can make you do everything. Very true. I
Very
That's
true.
agree
true.
there. Okay, what are different types of humor? I mean, in movies we have a slapstick, sitcom. What about writing? Are there any subtypes there?
I think we covered that, right? Situational, slice of life, gallows sense of morbid kind of humor, satire, spoof, then the self-deprecating
Absurdist.
kind of humor. Yeah, absurdism, then the self-deprecating kind of humor where you're blogging and you make fun of yourself, for example. Yeah.
Right.
Is there
Yeah,
anything else?
I think kind of wound up, collected everything and presented it perfect. Is commenting on a person's mannerism, physical appearance in a light-hearted way classified as humor? Sometimes we may end up hurting sentiment. Yeah, so I think Natasha's already answered that before. We don't get into
No.
body
No.
shaming. Do
No.
not specifically mention anything, person's mannerism,
I mean, like
appearance.
all babies are ugly might still work,
Oh
but
no,
your mama so fat will not.
babies are not ugly.
No, no. I'm saying that as a, I know they're not, but they all look the same as per me. So when my daughter was born, if someone asked me go and find her out in in whatever
Yeah,
nursery
I
of
know
10
what you
babies, I would not be able to figure it out. But I mean, it will, it may work if you your character is such. So it really depends. So if you have someone who's a very brash kind of a person, and who says racist things, like Donald Trump, for example. So Donald Trump says the most idiotic things, and it works for some, doesn't work for some. So it really depends on your story, who your character is. But as a general rule, one should not take, not offend anyone, not go for body shaming or physical attributes,
unless it's like a
or
narrator, unless it's a narrator, right? Like you have these rom-coms where the heroine says, oh, look at me, I look as though I look like something the washing machine spat out, example, right?
right,
So
but
that's
that is because I'm
self-deprecating.
making fun of myself. So I can say my
That is
thighs are
okay.
so fat that they're chaffing, and I think I'm going to just peel off or whatever. That's funny because I am saying it about myself, but I
Not
cannot say
myself.
that
Yeah.
XYZ is so fat that she'll take 2 seats or
Ah,
whatever. Your mama so fat kind of those series. When
you can
those are
use
very,
hyperboles. That's where I'm so
yeah,
hungry I could eat a
that
horse. Hyperboles,
I
that's
love them.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And self-deprecating is fine, but making fun of others, offending anybody's sentiments, religious sentiments, no, no, strict no, no.
Urmi, whom I'm moving ahead, and because this is something that I've always felt. There's this very famous poet called whose name, of course, I will not remember right now, but it's some Sharma, and he's very famous in in Kavi Sammelans that happened during holy times. I can't remember his name. With S. So his entire body of work revolves around making fun of his wife and making fun of his maybe her appearance, or even Kapil Sharma for that matter. My wife's lips look like a dog parrot, some nonsense he does. So it may be funny, in the 80s or 90s when, we were not very aware of, sensitive issues like this. But uh, I think it's generally best avoided.
To avoid.
Yeah.
Because what you think is humor could be triggering for someone else, someone who's like battling, body
Right,
weight issues or any disease,
right,
and it's just not cool. Some people
right.
do it, some people make a living out of it, but it's not cool.
Right. When I was younger, I used to get a lot of pimples. So I used to always tell my friends that, I was praying to God for a dimple, but I think I had a lisp because, he gave me pimples. So now that is funny to me, at least, because I am mocking myself, or I'm making fun of, my relationship with myself. But it may not have been so funny when, someone else would have put it, possibly.
So someone here asked, do you think someone who's witty can write humor better?
They would have a better handle at it
Yeah.
because, you experience it day in and day out. But
It comes naturally, probably. Someone who's witty, I mean, they include humor in all parts and walks of life every day and everyday talks. So probably they can handle humor better in a story. That's probably what they mean.
Honestly, if you wake up every day, you get like some 20 forwards on WhatsApp and half a dozen
I
memes.
know.
Everybody can be witty. Everybody can be witty. WhatsApp University ensures that nowadays.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so what may seem like humor to one may not seem the same to others. So how do you strike the right chord?
Experiment, experiment, and experiment.
It's a good
And
one.
we
This is
always
a
have Penmancy and its reviewers to give us the honest feedback.
That's what I said. You try with, you experiment with, maybe you want to contradict slapstick with sarcasm. You want to want to do a satire with maybe absurdism. So you have to find that what makes you comfortable and what you feel um, doesn't get the reader uncomfortable. So it's an experiment. So
maybe
I
get a
I
few beta readers. If you're in doubt, get beta readers.
yeah,
But listen, people have different conflicting views, and we live in the
yes,
stupidest of times, as someone correctly pointed out. Like even a
absolutely.
color of a dress can offend somebody, so you can't please everyone. We live in very absurd
I
times,
know.
but at least try not to poke fun at someone. Run it through beta readers, and the rest, what comes comes. And then yeah.
All right. The only humor story I wrote was extremely ordinary folk tales, and I was so surprised at the feedback that readers actually liked it. I usually write crime or horror, and I went with obvious humor, no complicated jokes. Says Monica.
I would
I
highly recommend this reading. It was an absolute stunning piece. It was a slice of life situation. It was like a therapy. It's just happening all in one room about parents and a counselor. For anyone who's looking for
I
reference
know.
material, humor, please read this.
I
It was
remember.
really,
Yes, it's
really
a
good.
fantastic
can
story.
share the link under the video,
Yeah.
when it gets posted, so
Monica,
that
you should write
people can
humor more
share it.
often. You're pretty good at it.
Yeah, I still remember about one character who didn't take bath for 10 days in the story. It kind of, steered me for life, scarred me for life.
All right, and okay, what else does Kavi writing? Okay, so when we write a 2,500 plus word story for a harness prompt, how much percentage should be humor? Is what this sounds very mathematical. I mean, how much
I know.
percentage should be humor?
Um, Again, I'm sorry to say this, but it actually depends on what you're writing. So if you're writing a story which is a man losing his suitcase and finding another one full of joints. So that would be an out and out humor and would possibly require a larger quantity of humor to be infused into the story. But if you're writing about someone, like if you're writing gallow humor has to be slightly, I won't say subdued, but it would have to have It's more of a trace element than the actual one. So, I mean, if you want to discuss what kind of story you're thinking about, then maybe I can and Rita can give you better insights into how much percentage of humor. But if you're writing an all-out humor, then obviously it has to be in larger quantities. uh, and the others will you just have to play it by the ear.
Agreed. Lalita, would you like to add anything to this?
I would go with 42%.
I would actually say it could be in the range of 38 to 59.6.
No, I'm
What?
just joking totally. I don't think there's any hard or fast rule, just like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I just threw a random number there.
42.
But I think you can,
That's going to be
what
my
you
age for the rest of my life.
what you can do is you can break your story into pockets. It could be sections, subsections. Make sure there's a little bit of humor in each subsection. That works, if that works, because you can't write a whole story and then have one joke necessarily somewhere in. It doesn't really elevate the story that much, right? You keep it consistent and make sure it makes sense with the right timing. I know it's all easy to say, but to implement it'll require a bit of practice. But there's no fixed hard and fast rule. Just make sure that there are people have a few things they will remember. Like when you have the harness reviews, you have the reviewers coming and saying, I love this sentence, I like that sentence. So think of those instances. Can you create moments that the readers can take back? Maybe it's humor, maybe it's something that made them chuckle, but can you create those kind of moments? That's If you've done that, you've won.
All right. Yeah, makes sense. Shweta asks, what is more sought after, humor as in laughter or that which is subtle?
I like both.
Depends on the person, yeah.
Yeah. And the
For me, it'll be
situation.
like out and out laughter. For my husband, it'll be like subtle. Depends on the
Yeah.
person. If Yeah,
Right. My husband says I still haven't grown out of college humor, so I think that pretty much answers your question.
because we stay forever young.
We're
Oh,
only
yes.
42. I mean, I am at least 40. You would somewhere be really far behind.
I rather not discuss age here, but let me just say I want to be young forever. So yeah, moving on.
Okay.
All right. Humor or mannerisms or physical traits may work if your character to whom these are directed are aware of these traits and even may even joke about themselves. That's true. Makes sense. So all those who are viewing
I would give
this,
an example
yeah,
for this actually. The Office. Office was this sitcom that came on TV, and Musaddi Lal, I think I mean the protagonist was. So there were certain characters who would play different. Sometimes they would be a clerk, sometimes they would be the CEO or whatever. But they had in Hindi it's called Takiya Kalam, if I'm not mistaken. So they have a certain specific characteristic action that they would do. So if employed well, it is kind of funny. So also it could be a tale if you're writing a murder mystery or whatever.
I saw an interesting feedback. I think you skipped over it, Lakshmi. It's about a PG Wodehouse story.
yes.
Um,
One
a PG
second.
Wodehouse story about two men arguing who has the ugliest baby, and that's supposed to be humor. But I think
I would find it humorous. Not so much now, but when I read it in college, I mean it was like, oh,
yeah, but humor evolves as well with times, right?
absolutely,
Classic
absolutely.
example: asterisks and obliques. If you've read them, they bash everybody. You can call them races or whatever, but they bash every country, every nationality. The French are crazy, Italians are crazy, Romans are crazy, all of that. And when we read it in childhood, we weren't mean, we weren't racist. We had a good laugh about it. But in these times, if somebody wrote an asterisk and oblique for the first time, there would be a huge, backlash because you're insulting culture, you're insulting races. So I think there's a pulse of a certain period, and there's a good reason why there is such a backlash, right? Because we have minority communities being affected, and they feel badly about it. So as time evolves, humor, the political correctness of humor also evolves, and what was funny back then may not be funny right now.
Absolutely. I mean, the 80s and 90s was a really wild period. So much so that anything went. I mean, of course, now it's slightly more tailored to suit our sensibilities.
And even body
Somewhat.
shaming women, right? It seemed to be like, oh yeah, the fat girl, and you make fun of them. But now women are speaking out, saying it's not cool, it's not funny. We
Yeah,
need to
the
respect
best
our
friend,
bodies.
the fat best friend who wears chashma, or the ugly Betty kind of you know makeover kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
stereotyping
don't
is,
think so now.
we need to shatter that mold. We need to stop making people with, the nerds with the glasses and the chubby nerdy types. We need to stop that. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
not funny anymore.
It's not. I mean, it was once. It's not. It's run its
Not
course.
anymore.
Yep.
So Urmi asked, does punning come naturally to you both? You generally use it in all your stories. We've seen that.
What can I
And
say?
What can I
I'm
say?
always on
Nothing. No.
Instagram. I pick up my best pickup lines from there.
irony should also be a good tool to generate
Oh
humor.
yes. Oh yes. There was this. I don't know what I was watching some time back, and there's this guy who's he's a guy and a woman, and this guy is being deprived of doing something. It's very innocuous. Let's say reading a book, for example. So he's like, I've been denied reading a book. You don't know how it feels to go out in the world and not to be to be denied reading book. And he's telling this to a woman, and she just looked at him. She's like, really? You're talking to me about denial? So yeah, but irony is it sort of may go over other people's in some people's heads. If it's not employed very well, then you have to understand the situation for it to be ironical.
So basically, the way it is presented, that will make the readers more
See,
acceptable
it's
with that
easier
thing.
for women to understand the situation I spoke about, where someone's talking to us about deprived rights, and we're not getting the rights to do something. So because we live in that situation, we have experienced it. So irony would is easier to do when you know or when you've experienced it or you have knowledge about that incident or past or whatever that you're talking about.
Because I
So
remember
Kajal,
seeing a very
Kajal,
hilarious video, on an ironical video. Like, a woman is having a tough day, then her husband says, "You know what? To cheer you up, I'm going to show you a magic table. Whatever mess I create on the table, by morning it gets cleaned." And she's like, "Are you kidding me? There's no magic. I'm the one who cleans it for you every time." And then
You know
she's
that,
so
that it's like, I'm sorry,
and,
sorry, go
and
on.
and she's so fed up, and she leaves. She calls the police, thinking that she's been kidnapped. And the police, so it's the two officers, a man and a woman, and and the guy says, "I think she fell on the magic table because she's disappeared." And the policeman says, "Yeah, I have one at home." And the policewoman says, "Are you kidding me?" Both. So that's a kind of
I
irony
know,
that really makes an impact.
absolutely.
so here Kajal gives us an important message for the event. Humorous, there's no hard and fast rule as to what percentage should be humor. If it is used as a tool to propel your story, that should work. So I think this is a good takeaway message for everyone who's reading it here and viewing it here. How did we get to discuss age here?
I did. The answer to the universe is 42, which is going to be
42.
my age for the rest of my life. So meet me in 10 years. I'm 42.
Okay. So there's someone here who says, so I have this joke about my age. I say I'm 18 in a few months, and a few months could be even 100.
I think that's Sudha. I have to make an
Sudha's
educated guess.
forever 18. I can vouch for
Yeah,
that.
she's forever 18. She's 16, I would say. My sister's daughter's turning 16, and I feel so old. I mean, I remember when she was born, and she's 16 now. So
Okay,
it's not good.
Momita says there are those subtle ones, there are those more difficult ones. Sound smart. I think I found Sarabai was a good one in Hindi.
Yes, absolutely. It is an elitist humor to a large extent, which is also, I think, a subcategory. I don't know. Is it, Lalitha?
Yeah.
All right, humor and wit, and how do we differentiate while writing a story? Pure humor without banter, is it possible?
It is, no? If you're doing self-deprecating. So if I'm talking about, um, there was this one story once I had written a very short one, 200 word, about you have to write a letter to a famous, or no, a famous character writes a letter to you. And I had written the letter from Joe March of Little Woman, and she says, dear Natasha, stop writing, stop sending me your, your manuscripts. They're horrible, And she goes on to describe, or I go on to describe how hideous my work is. So that kind of humor would work without banter, because it is you are basically sort of making fun of yourself. So you don't really, I mean, you don't really need banter per se. But in my opinion, humor always comes out really well in in a banter, a give and throw kind of a situation. In fact, Punjabis sing about it. It's called tappe tappe. So this is men and women, they banter. They've turned into the art of singing. I tell you, we are crazy.
I think banter is the best thing about writing a story, but but the
Absolutely.
only flip side is it actually puts some pressure on your word count. But in rom
Right.
coms, the kind of snarky banter, I mean, that's the fun of it,
Absolutely.
right? Because you put yourself in the shoes of the protagonist and you imagine having these conversations and the witty comebacks.
Absolutely.
So I think wit is a subset of humor again, but it depends. What are you comfortable with? Obviously, in some kind of a tragic comedy, you may not have enough scope for banter, but in a
Banter.
romance,
Absolutely.
definitely. So it depends on what
The-
comic story you're
right.
writing and how you want to deploy it. But banter, for me, is one of the best tools to elevate your story.
The Hating Game, for people who like rom com, it is the best book I've read on romance, of course, and the best banter. I mean, these two people sit next to each other and they play these games, and the entire book is about banter, 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 and it's so good. And Wedding Destination on it is the entire. It's a romantic. It's not really a romance. The entire story is based on amazing sarcastic humor between two people. There are only two people in the entire movie, and the entire movie goes about with them talking to each other. So that was one book, one movie that I wanted. I was so jealous. I wish I had written it. So yeah, banter works, man.
Banter works. And particularly if you're sick and you're reading a rom com, I always say, like, if you're sick, the three things, the three R's that work for you are rest, rasam, and rom com. These are
And
the
rom
best.
com. Absolutely.
All right. How about Three Men in a Boat? This has to be the funniest book I've ever come across. It made me shed tears.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, it was Catch 22. I read it in the train and I used to be laughing like a banshee, and people would just, give me the wide berth, which is good. So,
The funny trivia about Three Men in a Boat is like when it was written, it wasn't written as a humorous piece. It wasn't meant to be a funny book. But by the time it came out, it had so much of humor, and that's how it's been branded. But when the author Jerome wrote it, it was really not, it was supposed to be some kind of geographical guide around the place, but it came as something different. So
how
hey,
about
who
that?
knows? Maybe that could be your hidden talent. You start writing one story, you end up somewhere else. But doesn't
I
matter. It's
know.
still your
Yeah, pathos
destination.
could come out as immense humor.
Who knows? Or we may write a humorous story and it may come out as a really, really sad story, but it's okay because it still wins awards.
Oh, that happens. Oh, that happens.
All right. And what is the most difficult part about writing a story that incorporates humor?
Knowing when to stop and how much to use it. It sounds idiotic when I say it, but it really is true. How much humor is too much humor? Where do you draw the fine line? And what what is kosher? That, so that's for me. That's the most difficult part. And most often than not, I do tend to go overboard. Overboard, sorry.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Timing is important, and also for compel compelling yourself to write humor when the situation really doesn't demand any humor. Inserting humor for the sake of inserting it really doesn't elevate your story at all, or doesn't help you at all. So probably you want to finish writing something and step back, come back after a while, edit it, read it out loud. Does it really make sense? Does it make you smile? Does it make you chuckle? Or does it seem just it's in there for the sake of being there? Then if it is, chop it.
Correct. I think that kind of more or less sums up for the conversation on humor we've had today with great inputs. So, one last time, if we can just wind up for our viewers here today, how do you ensure that you make the plot interesting, easy, and humorous for readers? One last time from both of you before we take a close finish.
I'm not going there. I'll let Lalita go first.
Okay.
A quicker answer.
Hey,
Back
you
to
owe me
you.
one.
Okay, I'll take one for the team.
All right.
What is the question?
So, how do you
Come up
ensure that you make a plot humorous, easy, interesting, all together for the reader? You know, whatever they read.
So, knowing when to stop with the humor, knowing where you imbibe it in your characters. Does it make sense for somebody to be laughing, at a situation, or someone to be cracking jokes at a situation? So for me, these are you know, very important tricks or tips, whatever, that I would use. So, where is your humor coming from? When is it coming out? And what situation is it coming out? And of course, it's non-offensive. I don't know if I've answered your question or just sort of said something.
No, I think it
I
kind of sums up for everything. Yes,
I would
Lalita?
start with a plot line. Think of the story you want to write. Don't get too bogged down by, okay, it has to be funny, it has to be humorous. It'll come along. Think about the story that you want to write. It could be anything, slice of life. Like, I have an example. I remember Sudha Vishwanath madam had written this story about a woman trying to lose weight. And, it's slice of life situations. Take any plot like that, anything that you can relate to, resonate with. Because if it's something closer to your heart, something that you've been through, it's easier to bring out alive, right?
Correct.
Um, so get that kind of situation, that story, that structure in your head, and shape up your characters. Maybe you have one character who's like the comical clown who's going to provide all the comic relief, right? And think how you
Chandler,
can make them endearing, yet funny, yet clumsy. That could be one way of doing it.
or
Or you could,
vulnerable.
or vulnerable, exactly. We love the
Humor
clown
is
who's
humor is a
vulnerable, who
good
removes the
defense.
mask. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great way to deflect.
correct.
So
Or you
that's
could,
actually a
or
good
for
idea.
Yeah. And for people who love to write mythology, take a story. Any story is possible and try to give it a contemporary feel with elements of comedy. There are some funny stories. You can take Ghatotka's story and the I don't remember, the Maya Bazaar story, for example. That could be a great story for comic relief. Or you could take even a thriller, as long as you know what elements you want to incorporate. Maybe it's just the banter between the leads, right? Or maybe it's just a funny murder solving mystery where the police are always bungling up. Yeah. Or it could be a horror comedy, like, a ghost who's lost, or a ghost who forgets how to haunt, or forgets he's dead, example. So just think of a plot where you can write the story and build in dialogue, short sentences, hyperboles, irony, satire, spoof, whichever way, whichever direction. We've covered quite a few, subheadings. Think of which direction you want to go in. If you're not very comfortable with banter, no problem, build it as an out and out spoof or an out and out satire. That also works. Yeah. So just think of the direction. What are you comfortable with, or what do you want to experiment with? Use your plot to propel it. Maybe your characters drive your story. We don't know. We don't know how the characters will grow and build and lead the story. But build that framework, see how it goes, give it to a few beta readers or friends, get their inputs, ask them, do you think it's too serious? Do you think you need to incorporate some more dialogue, some more humor in it? And see how, and try again and again. And it's not the end of the world. You can always
Like
continue and try many more.
your story, Shakespeare in Love, incorporated the emotions and mindset of an animal. Uh, Speaking about Shakespeare, so there were elements of, the animals' emotions coming through in the form of a human expressing human emotions. And Natasha, your story had this element or a message, a take back message, where we were speaking about the importance of regional language books, bringing it out to an audience, and how they have lost their importance over the ages. And it was something to reflect upon. So it was not just pure humor, but a message that was incorporated within there. So I think anything can work wonders. Uh, so Natasha, are you there?
I just had one very small point to make.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yes, you are.
You can also use props in humor. So the prop can be your substitute for the gags. So for example, there's this. I think I've not seen the movie, but there's a movie about suitcase, where the entire movie, or Jaane Bhi Do
Loot
Yaro,
case.
the loot case, yeah, the dead body of Satish Shah. I mean, it's a kind of a weird thing, but so you can also use props if you don't want to really use a human being, and you can put all the emotions in the prop. That can also work.
So, yeah, I think both the stories have incorporated a kind of prop that which does not have, or incorporated human emotions into a prop which talks about, or
Right.
speaks about how humor can be incorporated in a story. I think
Right.
brilliant stories and brilliant insights and inputs from both you beautiful ladies here. Thank you so much ladies, for joining us for this insightful session. Thank you so much, all the viewers here, for being so interactive and giving us deeper insights on how to write a humor story. Um, and of course, Kajal, Ram, Monica, and everyone here at Penmancy for this wonderful platform and opportunity which helps us all grow together. So until next time, see you all again. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.